The related show are those or stations. VCMG Live is not responsible for any content, information, or opinions expressed. User bears full responsibility for their reliance on such content, information, or opinions.
Welcome to Making Money with Laura Sanders, a name you can trust. With over 20 years of real estate experience and selling over 150 homes a year, Laura Sanders is the #1 RE/MAX agent in the state of Florida for 2021. Join us each week as we discuss how to make money through buying and flipping homes to renting versus selling and everything in between. To join the conversation, call in live 888-994-4995, Studio A.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Making Money with Laura Sanders, and I am your host, Laura Sanders. Every week we talk about something that helps you make a little money, save a little money, helps you to navigate this crazy world that we live in. So today we're going to talk about insurance today. We have so many different topics in insurance that we could go on and on and on. And today we're here with Brandon. He is our insurance guy, and welcome.
Thanks. I always love being here.
You always love being here?
Yeah.
What's not to love?
It's a good time.
So there's so much to talk about with insurance. I feel like every day, we have to manipulate insurance every single day.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of nuances in the Florida market that we have to figure out, especially when it comes to purchasing a home. In order to get people to the closing table, it can get really complicated.
Well, you know what I love about you? Can I tell you what I love about you?
Sure.
First of all, you're always available, which I love that, right? I like to be able to call somebody directly and get an answer, but the other day I was at a home inspection and it was my listing, and the buyer said, well, I'm not going to be able to get insurance because the water heater is like 14 years old. And I was like, that's not true. I mean, if there's nothing wrong with it, it doesn't matter the age always.
Yeah, so sometimes people like to look at insurance in kind of a vacuum, that there's these hard and fast black and white rules, and there's not. You know, we're looking at just in the state of Florida this year, it looks like 4 right now. It could be more, but 4 new carriers coming into the state of Florida.
Oh, nice.
Which would be great for competition. We need to see rates come down, which is what everyone's hoping for. But with that said, every single one of those carriers is going to be playing by a different kind of set of guidelines that they have. And so the guidelines that they have, one might allow for older water heaters and one might not. One might allow for older roofs and one might not. And so really what
happens if you get one of the one and one in the other? What do you do?
Yeah, that's
you replace one?
Yeah, that's where you have to have a trusted insurance agent that knows, okay, these are the guidelines for this carrier and so on. And it gets really convoluted.
Yeah, I mean, like right now we're kind of going through a kind of weird thing where it's like we're in a homeowners association, right? It's fee simple, which for any people that don't know what that is, it's like a condo isn't fee simple, but in townhomes we could be fee simple, and which means that you own the land that your townhouse sits on. Not that you could rebuild whatever you wanted if it burned down, but you'd have to go back to what's there. But you know, the lender's saying, well, I want flood insurance, right, separate from the flood insurance that the building has, when it's really not even in a flood zone.
Yeah, so...
Even though it's in the Everglades.
Yeah, it's really close to the Everglades. But
yeah.
the thing that we see this a lot with this flood on a fee simple townhouse, or we see it a lot with hurricane coverage. So a lot of times the association will have a master insurance policy that covers hurricane damage or hurricane losses, and some lenders will require that you have for the mortgage that you have hurricane loss coverage on your insurance policy, or some on your personal policy, or some will require or will be okay with the master policy to satisfy that requirement. And so again, it comes down to those nuances of each market, each carrier, I should say, that really depends on what they're willing to go for.
Okay. So I was also hearing that now Citizens is requiring for policyholders to now have flood insurance. How is that determined?
Yeah, so it's a slow rollout over 4 years. So it just started on January 1st, of this year, and it'll continue every year So right now it's any citizen's policy that's in a flood zone that has $600,000 in coverage A. So if you look at your policy, look at the first line usually is coverage A. I'm happy to review it with anyone, but coverage A, 600,000 or more, they're going to require a flood policy. Now, lenders typically require a flood policy if you have a mortgage on the property and it's in a flood zone. Sometimes there's nuances where they might not. So 600,000 and above, that started this year. Next year it's 500,000. The year after it's 400,000, and the year after that it is all policies if they're in a flood zone, and they are an HO3 policy. So that means that it's a single family home or a fee simple townhouse.
Not that you might know this answer, but any reasoning? Do you know any reasoning behind why they're doing this? Because again, when you have, for instance, we just had these massive floods in Fort Lauderdale, right? We saw massive damage. The flood policies are what would cover that damage, not the homeowner's policy, right? I don't even know the homeowner's policy wouldn't even come into play for personal items, would it?
So a typical homeowner's policy does not include flood insurance. Sometimes we can add what's called a flood endorsement onto the policy if certain carriers, some have it and some don't.
Right.
Now, as far as personal property goes, so this is the contents. If you were to take a house and flip it upside down, everything that falls out, this would be your personal property. So, clothes, furniture, dishes, appliances are typically included in that as well. That is sometimes included on a policy or not. And so the way that I try to separate myself in this business is that whenever it comes to quoting somebody, I'm not just going to send them a quote and hope that it sticks. I want to talk to them on the phone, go over each of these coverages, because it changes the policy a lot. And then that tells them, here's what you're covered for and here's what you're not. You decide what's best for you and your family. The same thing for a flood policy. They're going to cover the building and they're going to cover contents. There's a few other little ancillary coverages they might throw in, but it depends. Do you want contents coverage for your personal items? But to answer your question on citizens, they have said in a statement, it's on their website, that they are trying to mandate flood in policies to hopefully bring down premiums in the long term. So when you have more competition and more flood is needed, hopefully it'll bring down premiums for everybody.
Okay. So would you recommend though that they get, because flood is only $250,000 in coverage, right? Which is not going to cover a lot.
Well,
so would you recommend an endorsement? Do you have those conversations with people?
Yeah, so typically I don't endorse flood onto a homeowner's policy. I'm going to write a separate flood policy entirely.
Right, but that's only $250,000.
No, it's actually there's $5 million. The National Flood Insurance Program, if you get a flood policy through them, they cap out at $250,000.
Okay.
But all of my other flood insurance companies, they don't cap out at $250,000.
So who are some of these other policy companies?
Yeah, like there's Aon Edge, there's Neptune. Neptune is my go-to.
Okay.
And then the list goes on. Flood is huge right now. And last year, when Citizens announced this requirement, flood in Florida has blown up.
Yeah, so about, I don't know, might have been 8 years ago in Hollywood, over by Young Circle, I had somebody buying a property. And do you know the flood was like $28,000?
Yeah. Well, it's not that bad anymore.
Oh my God, I was like, and the lady was like, you know what, I'll just pull an equity line off of my house and pay cash for the property and buy it. I was like, thank you, Jesus, because I was like, who am I going to sell this to?
Yeah, it's really hard. Flood has come down, and the National Flood Insurance Program was created kind of like Citizens to help.
Yeah, but this is only 8 years ago, so that's something more recent?
I would have to look at that. It seems like it was kind of a interesting scenario.
I started asking every time I was selling something in Fort Lauderdale. I was like, can I get a little more information here? Yeah,
it's always good as a homeowner. You can just look up, do a quick search, FEMA flood map, and you go to the map service center in the FEMA website, and you can plug in your address, and it's going to tell you what flood zone you're in. And if it starts with A or V, you're in a flood zone. It'll say you're in flood zone X or X500. you're fine if that's the case.
Okay.
But letter A is kind of the big one.
I laughed that a lot of realtors don't even know how to check it so easily on the MLS.
Yeah, there's a button right on the MLS for it.
Like literally you click it and you look down below and it says everything you need to know, like surges happen here, or like, which is kind of scary.
Yeah, how often?
Maybe we don't want them to know for the ones that don't ask the question. I don't know. Anyway, I think we'll go to commercial break. When we come back, let's talk about car insurance, because I know we stay focused, but we got to help people save some money. So we got to, making money with Laura. So we'll be right back. We're going to go to commercial and check out our sponsors.
Whether you're buying, selling, refinancing, or building your dream home, you have a lot riding on your loan specialist. Max Fish, a top 1% mortgage loan officer in the nation, will give you a same-day qualifying quote. Max Fish is committed to providing his customers with mortgage services that exceed their expectations. Ensuring that you make the right choice for you and your family is his ultimate goal. Contact Max Fish today at 954-729-6933 or max.fisch@nwmcorp.net.
At JK Closing Attorneys, we do all of the same things that a title company does, but with the benefits of being a law office. We can help with residential real estate, short sales, commercial real estate, refinances, 1031 exchanges, and FIRPTA withholding.
Contact JK Closing Attorneys today at 954-332-3111. Again, that is 954-332-3111.
You have been watching Making Money with Laura. For more information, contact Laura Sanders at 954-650-0827 or visit her website at thelaurazell.com. And now back to the show.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Making Money with Laura Sanders, and I am your host, Laura Sanders. If you're thinking about buying or selling, you definitely want to give me a call. With all the experience I have, I could save you a ton of money just by not having the mistakes that could be made on your behalf. So if you want to check out my website, laurazell.com, that's LAURASELL.com. Check out some of our new listings. We have some amazing listings that are on the market right now. Weston, we have stuff in Coral Springs, we have stuff in Tamarack, we have stuff in Fort Lauderdale, we have stuff, we just put on a triplex, so great investment property, Airbnb. Give us a call, and we have our amazing sponsors, which we have Max Fish, who could help you do the mortgage on these. I'm sure he's throwing out some really good deals. He'll refinance it for you for free. We have Brandon over here that he will go ahead and do whatever you need for insurance to make sure that he gets you the best rate possible. So definitely give me a call, 954-650-0827, and welcome back. So we're talking about insurance, and now I think we should talk about car insurance, especially after the last time I had you on and you jinxed me and my son got in a car accident. I'd just like to know, like, how screwed up is my insurance going to be next? Luckily, it literally just renewed that week. I thought they were going to pull it back for me.
Yeah, hopefully
but I
not.
paid in full.
So one thing about auto insurance, and we spoke about this last time I was on the show, that again, I'm a broker. And so what that means is I have relationships with a bunch of insurance carriers, and I go and I shop it with all these carriers to find the best rate. Second to that is most agents that I've dealt with, insurance agents, there's a lot of good agents, a lot of good realtors, a lot of bad ones, bad agents, same thing there. But one thing that I've noticed is that a lot of them don't go over the coverages. And I truly want to help my clients make the best decision. And so going over the coverages line by line, just like we talked about on homeowners, the same thing with auto insurance is very, very important. And on auto insurance, typically we see a higher number of auto claims. It's not surprising to hear that somebody has an auto claim. Homeowners insurance claims are not as often. And so understanding your coverages is imperative.
Well, I happened to be one day in my networking, and we had one of the attorneys do a presentation. So of course he's the guy that goes after everybody's money when there is a car accident, right? So I guess maybe like 8 months ago, I just started stacking my policy. It was only a few more dollars. And so when my son did get into this accident, which I have no idea how it was an 80-20 fault, but whatever, I truly believe it was the other kid's fault, but that's a whole nother story.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they were like, oh, you have a really good policy. You have a really good policy. And that's because I stacked my cars.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you recommend? What's your suggestion, like, on when you're doing your policy, like, you know, like what costs only a few more dollars? Like, I don't have rental.
Yeah, so rental reimbursement typically costs a few more dollars, not very much. We're talking about in some cases like less than $100 over 6 months. And if you get in an accident and you need a rental car, it can be a lot cheaper. And so a lot of times you can do, you know, $30 to $60 a day in rental reimbursement. Typically it has a 30-day cap, and it's a no-brainer just to get that little bit of extra coverage in case you're in an accident, for, you know, let's say $100, $150 or less over 6 months.
Right.
One of the other things that I run into a lot that is tricky in our market in South Florida, especially because South Florida has one of the highest costs of auto insurance in anywhere in the U.S., and that's uninsured motorists. And so because, or underinsured motorists, but because insurance is so high here, people want to get the lowest amount of coverage, or they don't want to get they don't want to get no insurance at all, which you have to have insurance in Florida. It's important if you don't have insurance
Is it a
on your
felony?
car.
It's not though.
I don't know what I think it's a misdemeanor. I'm not sure, but I'll tell you this much: if you sell a car and you don't turn in the plate, and the state sees that you lost your insurance on that vehicle, they'll cancel your license.
Wait,
suspend
say it again. If you sell a car.
So like my wife and I, we traded in a car.
Right.
My wife got a new car, but the car we traded in was in my name. And so we got a new plate for her car, and I didn't turn in that new plate. Well, I received a notice from the state saying, we see you're no longer insuring your vehicle. We're going to cancel your...
I never got that.
We're going to suspend.
And I haven't turned mine in a
license.
couple of times because I didn't know where to turn it into.
Yeah, so you got to be careful with that. I don't know if there's things that fall through the cracks with the state, but I've heard this story over and over. But yeah, there's a lot of people that drive uninsured or underinsured. And so making sure you have the right coverage of what we call BIPD. These are outward facing limits. So this protects the people in the other vehicles. This is bodily injury, BI, and PD is property damage, like their vehicle. You want to have good limits there. And then uninsured motorists covers you and the people inside your vehicle if the other person doesn't have good bodily injury limits. And typically the lowest you can get is 10,000, 20,000. So 10,000 per person, 20,000 per accident, and then 10,000 in property damage typically. Well, there's not a lot of cars on the road right now that are 10,000 or less, or to fix a car is going to be 10,000, way more than 10,000, and then $10,000 doesn't go very far in the hospital for somebody that gets hurt in an accident.
So what do you recommend?
I would say your higher end limits are like 250, 500.
Okay.
And that's a good limit. If you want an umbrella policy, which would cover what I call it extended lawsuit protection, you can get an umbrella policy, but most umbrella insurance companies require that you have at least 250, 500 on your underlying auto. The next one down from there is typically 100, 300, 100. So 100,000 per person, 300,000 per accident, 100,000 in property damage. That's a good amount to have. As you start to go further
but doesn't
south,
like when you lease a car, they require like 250, 500, or is it 100, 300?
No, not necessarily, and it's going to require on the bank that you go through. But they're more concerned about that you have not that
property.
Again, these are outward facing limits. So this covers the people in the other vehicles. They want to make sure that you have comprehensive and collision coverage so that vehicle can be repaired. Or replaced, yeah. So collision is if you collide with another vehicle, and comprehensive is if it's other than collision, we call it. So like if a rock hits your windshield or a tree falls on your car, something along those lines.
Which does happen.
It does happen, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to, so what typically, like, have you seen, like, for instance, like my son was found 80% at fault, right? So do you have some sort of an idea of how that looks?
I get really, really frustrated with the back end claim systems of auto insurance companies. And I'll tell you why, because whenever I run an auto quote, I have to run something called CLUE and MVR reports. So it tells me how MVR is motor vehicle records. So it tells me if they had accidents or speeding tickets or moving violations. And it's very, very often that I hear, hey, I was in an accident, but I wasn't at fault. But when you have two insurance companies in the back end going back and forth, they're going to decide who's at fault, and you're not going to have a say.
Right.
And
No,
so,
they told me it was 80-20.
Yeah, and so you can try.
I'm like, how do you determine that when the kid's like on a non-motor, like in a motorized vehicle that has no lights, no plates, no, it's like.
Yeah, you could try to fight it, but it's difficult to do, and so it's just frustrating that we don't have a lot of control. But what's important is up front, I can tell clients, hey, here's the situation. If you're ever in a claim, make sure, give me a call, let's talk through it. And it's hard because you don't want to make a claim, you're penalized for doing it.
Yeah, but you can't, that's the other thing though, if you're at a scene of a crime, and this is more of an attorney thing, but let's make it known that like somebody hits you or you hit them, like first of all, let's say they hit you and you say, okay, just give me $200. I think that will cover it, right? Or, they can come back and say you hit and ran on them.
Yeah. You're
going to get arrested and it's going to become way bigger thing, right?
Yeah, and that's it.
So you need to call the
charge.
You need to call the police no matter what the damage is. And once you call and you have the smallest little dent, you've devalued the car by $10,000. So if they hit you, and as long as they get the ticket that they're at fault, you can sue them for the damage and the reduction. Like in my situation, right? Can I sue them for like the 20% damage to the car to get the depreciation of the car? Technically, I guess I could.
Yeah, you could sue anyone for anything. The other thing to think about is if you go look at, resold cars or used cars, I should say, whenever the Carfax has an accident, it drops a lot.
$10,000
It drops
at least.
a ton, and so
I know. From a girl with a dent that I could take, I had a dent company come and take it out because there was no claim. It was just the cops were called. It wasn't even a cop. It was one of the, he happens to be a realtor, which is funny. Joshua came out in Coral Springs, and it was kind of funny. He came out and they wrote a report, and I was like, found out after that stupid report over some stupid dent that could be taken out by like the dent wizard.
Yeah.
$10,000 a car went down in value.
Yeah, it can go down in value.
I had the car for 1 month.
Something that I typically like to tell people, there's little things that you can do to try and keep yourself safe. And so we talked a little bit about property damage. So a lot of people have like $10,000 in property damage coverage if they hit another vehicle. Right. Not very much. Well, if you're driving out east, let's say in Fort Lauderdale, there's a lot of really nice cars. Bentleys, Ferraris, G-Wagons,
right.
Really, really high-end cars. And for a lot of people, it's really tempting to get up close and look. I want to see what that car looks like. I want to see what the guy in that car looks like. And they'll get close. What I tell clients all the time is, if you see a nice car, just switch lanes, because you don't want to accidentally bump into that car and it's going to cost you a ton of money. And that guy who's driving the Ferrari, if he's not renting it, probably has an attorney that's going to make sure you pay as well. So switching lanes and getting away from some of these nicer cars is a really good little thing that you can do just to play it safe.
Well, that's a good piece of advice, but we're running out of time. So how can we get a hold of you if we want the best insurance guy out there?
Yeah, so I work from my cell phone. It's really important to know that. I said last time on the show, don't treat me like any other insurance guy. I don't do the 9 to 5 thing. I want to make sure people are covered and they're comfortable with their coverages.
They're covered.
So you can call or text me anytime. My cell phone number is 954-326-9842. Again, that's 954-326-9842. And we'll make sure that, your friends, your family, whoever it is, that they're covered and that they're comfortable with everything.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming out today. We really appreciate it. And thank you for listening to Making Money with Laura Sanders. And we look forward to seeing you next week. So thanks and have a great night. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in for Making Money with Laura Sanders, a name you can trust. To join the conversation, call us at the studio, 888-994-4995 Studio A, or contact Laura directly at 954-650-0827. Laura Sanders, a name you can trust. We look forward to seeing you